Hello, my friends, family, esteemed colleagues. So in this second video of the mini-series about natural health, I kind of hinted I'm going to talk about hydration and cleansing, but it doesn't make sense unless we know what we are cleansing. So this is going to be a video about toxicity. What are toxins? How we become toxic? What creates those toxins? And the same as in the first video, I'm going to dissect the issue both ways. One is through our reality, what we think we are, and what we think we are doing, and mirroring it to our quantum reality. For example, in this physical reality, three-dimensional reality, we see ourselves as a human body making decisions and living in our world, three-dimensional world. And in a quantum field, we actually realize that we are the spirit that is manifesting, and it's manifesting its own robot, and it's manifesting the reality around itself. So it has experience of it. And what we think in reality that we are, who we are, okay, so I look at myself in a mirror and I see how I look, and my name is Darko, and this is what do I respond to. And I think that this is me, when in actuality, it is like me being in a car with a tinted windows and passing a big mirror, and I see a car passing, and I say, whoa, okay, that's me, I'm the car. No, I'm the driver in the car. When I leave the car stays and can do nothing. Same as our robot. If a soul leaves the body, the robot is frozen. It cannot move. Sometimes when we sleep, we do that. We leave the body, we have experiences, and in that case, our body is just frozen in place. And it can happen that we return, but we don't even start the engine yet. And if we become conscious of ourselves, we feel frozen, like, okay, I cannot get up. I cannot do anything. Well, because we didn't yet start really starting the engine and getting the robot going. This often happens during meditation. So, before we even go to cleansing and hydration, the healing process, let's see what do we have to heal from, and why do we get toxic? In nature, I pointed, the animals do not have chronic diseases. They don't have disease whatsoever, not even sniffle. Why? Obviously, the big difference is the way they eat. So, they eat everything the way they found. How they found the food, that's how they eat it. What we do, well, we play with the food. We find the food, and then we torture it. We process it, we heat it up, and then we eat it. And it came to our understanding that this is how we have to treat the food, otherwise it is not healthy. This is pushed especially through books, through science. And I mentioned my mother always said, you have to have at least one warm meal a day. Says who? Mother. This is not true. Animals are very healthy. because they eat the food they find in the state they found it in, and I call it food of God, the way how God prepared it for us, food of the Creator. Why is this food healthy? Because it vibrates correctly. It vibrates the same way as the rest of the manifested reality that we have. It vibrates with a frequency of creation. Now, when you take the food, doesn't matter if it is a piece of meat, if it is a vegetable, like let's say carrot, or fruit, let's say apple. When they're in the natural state, they all have their own characteristics. So if you have, let's say, piece of venison, then the meat is red. It has a certain smell to it when you smell it. When you try to chew it, it has special flavor to it. Flavor usually comes from the fat, not really from the muscle. And has special consistency characteristic for this natural vibrating animal, part of animal that we are eating. Now, when you look at carrot, natural carrot, when you pull it out of the soil, well, it's, the color, what the color it is. It is firm, has little smell to it. When you bite it, you know how crunchy it is, hard, taste is distinguished to this particular vegetable. Same is with fruit, apple. Okay, they all have natural characteristics. And now, they're all related to frequency because, again, looking at this food from a viewpoint of the quantum, of the spiritual world, well, you are looking at sacred geometry of many different frequencies involved in each one of those creations. And the sacred geometry, the frequency involved in there, then bring out your finalized product in three-dimensional world. So when you look at it, well, what you see, what is eyesight? Well, those are frequencies of light that you receive, and then according how you have been processed, what processes you have, how you have been adjusted, you are now processing this frequency. Okay, certain frequencies will be processed through sensor of light. So in a third eye, you create the image of what you are processing. This frequency is this wavelength and shows red. This frequency is this wavelength shows white. This frequency in this wavelength shows, brown or green. And then the impulse is sent into your eyes, which are mirrors, reflecting it back to you. So you have the feeling that what you're looking at, it's out there. At the same time, the sacred geometry does not have only a wavelengths of vibration that will be processed by your sensor of light. It also has wavelengths that will be processed by sensor of taste. So when you touch it, you chew it, the frequencies will give you the taste of it, the bitterness, the sweetness, the salinity. All this comes from frequencies. Depending on the frequency, this is what you are going to taste. Same goes for smell. Another frequency, little variation, and shows you the particular smell of venison, or of apple, or of carrot. Okay? So, everything what we see in our reality, from a point of dots and now odors and tastes, flavors, all this, we now look for chemicals that do this, because we know something has to do it. So in three-dimensional world, we go, oh, it's a chemical, it's something, then we analyze and we make up our view of science. Scientifically, we're proving, okay, this chemical has this and this flavor, this chemical does this. Light, we know, depends on a wavelength. When you put white light that has all the colors in it through prism, because of refraction, it is going to, according to wavelengths, it is going to refract. So the one that is the longest one, that refracts the least and will be shooting more straight, will be probably red. And then as they go shorter and shorter, they refract more. And then you have the spectrum of red, yellow, green, blue, as depicted by wavelength. So whenever you see something red, it's particular wavelength, it's particular frequency. And same goes for everything else. It all comes from the sacred geometry that your brain is programmed to process and show it to you in three-dimensional view as such. Being it animal, being it meat, part of animal, being it vegetable, fruit, being it another individual, or things that we create, that we make physically, they all have particular frequencies that are processed through our sensors, and our robot, our mechanism, shows us the reality of it. Once we understand this, you can say that since they are frequency, they also produce sound. So every color has different sound. Every shape has different sound. Every taste, every smell, they all have different sound. And this is why Aboriginal people say that the nature sings to them. And they can never get lost because they follow the song and they sing back. So if you understand this, how this works, then you can understand that when we eat something that vibrates it's in its original form, well, it is tuned to the same scale as we are, because it's all tuned naturally to the same scale. Now, if we start heating stuff, we are raising frequency. You know that whatever you heat up vibrates faster. So you heat up water, well, all of a sudden it starts bubbling, it's expanding, starts bubbling, and then starts evaporating, just goes into expansion, because higher frequencies expanding. Lower frequencies condense. We are getting now from a dense world into more lighter world of lighter experience, lighter, lesser density, but higher vibration. Well, this is happening with everything what you are heating up. So it doesn't matter if you are heating up the meat, if you are heating up the vegetables or the fruit. When you start putting fire underneath them and you start heating them up, at one point, the frequency shift. How do you know? Well, smell changed. Everything that changed smell from this original to something else, well, it did it because frequency shifted. And since you did not put any other thing on it, you didn't put oregano. So you smell oregano. You just had the meat that you are heating. It changed smell because the frequency of the meat changed. The same is going to happen with carrot. Same is going to happen with fruit, with apple. But what else? All of a sudden you see color changes. Doesn't matter what it is. It's going to start turning brown. Brownish, goes dark. And then if you continue, it turns black. We continue with, to carbon, because it all has a carbon, and then the carbon becomes visible. Well, again, what gives the color? It's a frequency. Yeah, we say it's carbon. It is carbon. We say carbon is black, because carbon is not atom, what we say. It's a frequency. We have to understand things correctly. We have to start looking at the world from the point of truth, not the manufactured truth or version of truth spewed through science. So now when you understand that by heating the food, you are changing the frequency, which means also you are changing the sound of it. Okay? You are realigning it. So now you go and you take the heated food, you are putting it into your body. Into your body is now orchestra. Okay, so you have brain could be violins, and vocal box could be pianos, and heart drums, and the muscles could be violoncellos, whatever you want to relate it to. But they are all tuned to the same scale, and when they play music, it's a beautiful music. Everything vibrates equally, and we are healthy. And now all of a sudden, you start putting into your orchestra a piano that you took from outside, but before you put it in the body, you decided to tighten the strings a little bit more. It still plays great because you did a good job. You elevated every string perfectly, so it still plays good. Yeah, but it's in different scale. It's in off scale, which is even worse. Okay, so now you take violin, you do the same thing. You take violoncello, you do the same thing. And now you're putting them into your orchestra. Well, how do you think the music is going to sound when you have instruments tuned out of the scale, not in the same scale as the body is? It's going to be horrific. When you have I mentioned this in one of my videos, when you have one instrument, string instrument, let's say guitar, and you have a piano next in the same room, and maybe violin in the same room, and if you have let's say A string tuned to the correct frequency of C scale, which would be 432 hertz, and then you have the whole instrument tuned into that scale, when you play music, it will sound great. You can also take one instrument and tune it to the same A tune. You tune it a little bit up. Let's say instead of 432, 440 hertz. It will vibrate a little bit faster, slightly faster. Well, you may not feel different. When you play them together, you will see the difference. But it's not only playing together. If you take the properly tuned string and you strum it harder so it makes a little stronger resonance, every other A string in the area, being it on violin, being it on piano, or multiple strings in piano, because you will have the same tone in different scales, but tuning is the same. So what happens? Every string that is tuned to A is going to start vibrating because it's stimulated by vibration of the string that you just strummed on guitar. All of a sudden, your violin and your piano are playing with you. But if you have the string wrongly tuned, you strum it, the other strings do not react. Now, or if you string D string and you don't have any D string anywhere else, nothing will resonate because it's a different frequency. Only same frequency will stimulate same frequency in different area to vibrate like this. So now you bring into your body stuff that you call food of different frequency because you heated it up. Well, it does not support your vibration. It doesn't matter if it's fruit, is it vegetable, or is it meat. If it is not tuned correctly, if you heat it up, it is not going to be vibrating correctly. Now, closer it comes to your genetic material, closer to your cells, the more powerful will be the impact. So if cooked food is on a table, no big deal. If it's in a hand, still no big deal. You swallow it, okay, still no big deal, until it is absorbed and goes close to your cellular structure. Well, there comes a problem. But problem is also in digesting this kind of a food. Because all your digestive juices, your digestive system is geared to the correctly vibrating food. Now you bring wrong correction, wrong vibration, the body is lost. Does not know, well, what the heck do I do with this? And then it looks for help. Creation of microorganisms in the gut that start breaking the food and try to reprocess it into correct vibration. And then if we can digest the microbe product, which are fats, we can benefit from them. And this is what happens with herbivores. Because naturally, we cannot break cellulose. So when you eat plant, you don't get anyway. Only what you can get is what is in the juice. And juice is basically water. In plants, even poor mineralization. So it's basically water with a little bit of glucose that plant is using for energy. So it's like a sweet water. This is not good stuff for us, and not enough, because we would need way more energy than this. And when you heat up meat, well, the protein coagulates. Over 55 Celsius, it basically breaks and releases water. And this is making it shrink. We all know you put big steak, juicy steak, and then shoop, all of a sudden, it's half of it there. As it lost water, it became dense. Now even your juices, your enzymes cannot penetrate. Even the stomach acid has a tough time to work on this stuff. Digestion is partial, and it depends on growth of bacteria to work on it, when bacteria is taking apart something, we call it rotting process. It creates gas and foul smell. And that's what comes out of us. And the amount of energy we actually get is much less than when we eat stuff raw, because then we almost 100% digest. When we eat correctly. Now, eating correctly, what kind of food are we supposed to eat? Well, as a veterinarian, I know different digestive systems, because different animals have different digestive systems. We are omnivores, but omnivores that are basically meat eaters that also eat fruits. We are not capable of processing cellulose, or we cannot ferment because our stomachs are small and acidic, and fermented sac has to be neutral or alkaline. So we cannot really ferment anything in a stomach. And if we eat it incorrectly, if we eat plant food, body even doesn't produce acid. It originally, you put something in the mouth, immediately your body starts producing acid because it is expecting correct food. But when the correct food doesn't come, it stops making acid. When it makes little acid, it makes also a little buffer, because you are taking neutral medium, you are taking plasma, blood plasma, which is minerals in water. A lot of them are sodium chlorate. Stomach in stomach lining uses it to make hydrochloric acid. So it needs the salt, the chlorine from the salt. It needs the hydrogen. It's making hydrochloric acid. But as it is making hydrochloric acid, which is very strong, pH could be 2. It can melt glass, take apart metal. But it can also take apart your tissue, your lining, and your stomach to protect itself from this acid. At the same time as stomach creates hydrochloric acid, it is creating the buffer. So, acidity, alkalinity. And alkalinity is sodium bicarbonate. Uses carbon and sodium, which then is strongly alkaline, and if acid hits it, it gets neutralized on it. We don't always have this acid sitting in our stomach. Acid is produced on a need basis. So when we eat meat, we eat animal products, bingo, you start producing acid and buffer at the same time to protect you from this acid. And the longer the acid stays in the stomach, the more neutralizes itself from the alkaline buffer. So the digestion in the stomach with acid doesn't take long. 15-20 minutes the most. Then the alkaline buffer is neutralizing this acidic area, and when the content becomes almost neutral, this is when the pyloric valve opens and this content goes into small intestine, where it is going to be further alkalized a little bit by the bile that is injected there and absorbed, immediately absorbs. It breaks down to amino acids and fatty acids, and it's being absorbed. When we eat raw, it works like a charm. When we heat the things up, the more damage we create to the food, more difficult it becomes to digest it. And the necessity of helping force the microflora in the gut becomes obvious. Now, this microflora is lactic-based. It is based to work on fats and proteins, animal fats and proteins. Now, when we start eating incorrectly, totally incorrectly, eating plants, well, we don't have anything to really process these plants. But because we are omnivores and we can eat fruits, well, we have some glut available that will trap sugar molecules and will absorb them in the gut, through the gut into the blood. Amount of glut should be low, and doesn't matter how much sugar comes, the absorption is limited to glut level, and it's going to be maybe 20 grams in 24 hours. It's very, very small. Since we are not having sugar in our gut 24 hours, we are having it for few hours or not even hours. Because again, all the absorption, even of sugar, is happening in small intestine. It's not happening in large intestine. So on the beginning of the digestive process, once when the stuff hits the big intestine, the colon, no more absorption is done except absorption of liquid, water and minerals, which are in water. Now, if we eat incorrectly, if we eat plants, and if we eat them raw, well, cellulose we cannot tackle. And when we are looking at a content of the food that we eat, so you look at chemical content, well, this chemical content is done through analysis when they are breaking the stuff to see what else is in the food that you eat. But you are not doing this chemical breakdown because you cannot pass the cellulose. You eat banana raw, the whole banana is passing through, just changing color, because body is trying to digest it, but it can't. It cannot break the cellulose. So it cannot even get to the glucose which is there, to starch. And it comes out on the other end. Same is with any fruit, potato, everything that has carbohydrate enveloped in fine cellulose. When you look at the seeds, the protective layer is the shell. Underneath the shell, that's pure cellulose. Underneath the shell is the little brown skin, also cellulose, but this skin is loaded with chemical poisons to deter predators. So birds don't eat them, or other animal, monkey or other animals do not eat them. And they are not very strong toxins. They are not going to kill you because the amount is not there. But yes, some of these toxins are very strong. For example, vitamin B17, they call it lytril, or amygdalin. Well, this is actually very toxic stuff. And when the body is breaking it, when it enters the body, when body is breaking it down in cellular structure, well, it actually one of the what do you say? One of those products that come from breaking down amygdalin is cyanide. Cyanide is highly toxic to our cells. And this cyanide will kill cancer. Hurrah! How we know? Yeah, but it will kill every cell in your body. It's not going to work on your cancer. It's highly toxic stuff. So, this is how we have to understand body and our reality a little bit better than what we are being told superficially with targeted result. We are always being told targeted result. Yeah. Vitamins of plants are completely different than vitamins of animals. They have different vibration and they cause different reactions. Vitamin D, for example, in animals is coming basically from cholesterol. So the base is cholesterol. We call it vitamin D3. Yeah, but how often did it happen that you were prescribed vitamin D and you are given vitamin D2? They say, well, it's the same. It's plant-based. It's even better. Yeah, but vitamin D2 made in plants is not based on cholesterol. Plants don't have cholesterol. Okay? It's based on cyanide. So while vitamin D3 can benefit you, vitamin D2 is going to kill you in higher doses. No. Did anyone tell you this? No, because we only depicting what suits our narrative so we can sell product and achieve our goals, which has never been helping others, but profiting from others. And this, my friends, end has come to this. If you still want to continue living in a world when you profit from others and you don't care how much profit you get, or how much you hurt someone to get profit, well, then you cannot go with us up into the fifth density. You are going to have to wait a couple more million years and work on yourself to raise your consciousness. Because unless you start feeling happy because you are giving something, and people to whom you are giving this, they love you for it, you are not achieving your goal. Alone, we cannot survive. We survive as a community, as a tribe. And now we are going to go back into tribal living because not everybody likes the same thing. I love almost everything, but I prefer to be in a warm area, preferably on beautiful yacht, on the water, floating, and sailing around, not motoring, but sailing. Somebody else likes a camper and rolling around and living also free and changing places. But somebody likes to be put in one area and live in that one area. So we are going to create different communities. But no matter what community you are in, you want to support. So even if you come into different community, you come to visit, you are not going to now do things your way and forcing your way of living, because this is not helping the community. You are actually going to have to do things that support the community. Otherwise, you will be rejected. Well, same is with our way of living when we come to food. If you do not feed yourself correctly, well, your body is having problems. But because genetically we are set that through genetic action, we can go through internal transformation, adaptability. Then, when you start eating incorrectly, if the change is done gradually, your body genetically starts adjusting. Some genes stop vibrating because this is a different vibration that you're putting in your body. And the dormant genes that were not programmed to this vibration, start waking up. And all of a sudden, you start producing, again, chemicals. I want to protect the video, so you start producing this chemical, and you start producing what plants produce to be able to use glucose as a fuel. So cells have to hydrolyze the glucose. So they produce enzyme called glycoside hydrolase. And we know this is what plants have. And we know animals don't have this. Why? Because we are not supposed to make energy out of sugar, out of glucose. But once when we start forcing this to happen, then genetically we start shifting. And we go into changing. Our body changes, genetic expression shift. So now, not only that you don't produce the G stuff I told you, I showed you, but you start producing the glycoside hydrolase. But since animals should not be producing it, now Soyan said, no, you are not producing glycoside hydrolase, we are producing nagalase. It's the same damn thing, just you change name. It is enzyme that hydrolyzes glucose, so it can be used effectively in a Krebs cycle to produce energy in a cell. Before you didn't need it, because originally we are designed to be in ketogenic state. This is why every animal is in ketogenic state. And babies, as long as they suck on mother's milk, they are in ketogenic state. Why do babies go out of ketogenic state? Because we start feeding them sugar. Baby formula is sugar, purposely. And we are not talking lactose. We are talking glucose and sucrose. And this starts giving information to your genetic system to start shifting metabolism into glucoholic state, taking us out of ketogenic state. Only humans, grown-ups, are in glucoholic state. Every animal and all the children, when they are on mother's milk, they are in ketosis. We should remain in ketosis like every other animal, but why don't we? Because we start giving babies, how do you wind baby off of breast? A little compote, because compote has a low amount of starch, but it has a starch. It was heated fruit. And you give it a little bit, and the baby likes it, it's sweet, so likes it. The stomach gets a little bit loose, a little diarrhea at the beginning, but it's okay. You say you have to wind the baby slowly. Yeah, because you have to give it time for genetic adjustments, readjustment. If you feed baby correctly, you can give it any amount of food. What animals do. Wolf, cannot carry the stuff. So when it eats the meat, and when it comes back and has a little pups, regurgitate from the stomach, vomits the semi-processed food, and this is baby food. And then later start bringing fat first, and then meat as teeth are stronger. And this is how it gets wind of breast. We should correctly eat meat and fats and eggs. And then when you have baby and you want to wind it off, you chew for the baby a little bit of stuff so it's easier for him, and give him a little bit. You can give him as much as you want. And it's gonna be great. It stays in ketogenic state and everything is fine and dandy. No diseases ever happen. But no, we don't do that. We go and we start feeding them sugars. And we shift the whole metabolism of the body. And all our parameters, being blood, all the levels of our hormones and levels of enzymes and vitamins, all is based on glucoholic body. They're all wrong. Then when we are in ketogenic state, and we have a blood draw, and it shows a high LDL, oh, this is terrible. It's not terrible. It's a normal thing, because you are your body is working differently. It's in ketogenic state. It's in correct state. Your parameters are completely off from glucoholic body, but you are healthy. And doctors goes, I don't understand, your blood is upside down, but you look good. Of course, because all parameters that we are trained to understand as a healthy body are based on glucoholic body, not on ketogenic body. It's all upside down. And when you eat incorrectly, plants you cannot digest. So what happens? In the gut, your body is producing all kinds of bacteria depending on what plant you are bringing in, what type of a food you are bringing in, to help breaking down this stuff to give you something that you can absorb. And we say, well, yeah, you need a very big population of gut flora. You see, we have more gut microbes than we have cells in our body. Yeah, you do if you eat incorrectly. It's not the same thing if you eat correctly. It all shifts. Ketogenic body is completely different than glucoholic body. But we call ketogenic body sick body. As soon as you stop poisoning yourself, as soon as you don't eat anything, you go fasting, within 3 days, your metabolism starts shifting. Your number of mitochondria per cell that is activated rises, and you start producing more and more energy from fat that you have. And you slip into ketogenic state, and everybody, doesn't matter what we are used to eating, when we are fasting, in the second week of fast, we actually feel really good. Especially third week. Wow, you feel light, you feel really great. Why? Because you are fully in ketogenic state. But doctor says, oh, you cannot fast longer because ketogenic state is problematic. You go into ketonuria in this. Nonsense. You may go in ketonuria because when you eat incorrectly and you have been producing enough ketones, because you are mixing starvation, introducing starvation in the process. So you are still producing enough ketones because you are living off the fat that you have, because you are not eating rapidly multiple times a day to provide sugar. So body has to be supplied by fat. And then when you have a bigger amount of carbohydrates, all of a sudden the energy comes from sugar, and all ketones that you have had now become obsolete. Too many, and you urinate them. Ketonuria. It's a problem of the way you eat, nothing else. But when you are in ketogenic state and eat correctly, there is no ketonuria. Your stamina is great. Your rebuilding is great, because at night when you cannot eat, body during the night actually does most of its cleansing and maintenance. A lot of energy is required. There is no problem when you're in ketogenic state because you have fat. So you are always energized. But if you're in ketogenic state, you don't have accumulation of starches in the body. You don't have potatoes and bananas in your body. You don't have storage for glucose. And this is why when you eat too much glucose, your liver is forced to turn it into fat so it can store it. And then when you want to use it, you eat more starch, so the cell produces energy from the starch. And since you eat too much, you start converting more of it into fat, and you still keep accumulating fat for later, and you're bubbling like a bumblebee. And this is why everybody is obese, because they are in glucoholic state, eating junk, plant food. So very simple. Often people ask me, oh, that Darko is a freezing meat. Does it degrade meat? Well, now you have the information. Look at it from quantum point of view, from point of frequency. If the smell, if the color, if the taste did not change, it vibrates in perfectly tuned frequency of the creator, which means it's okay. You can have it. It doesn't create any problems. When it changes any of those, well, frequency shift, it was not so good. This doesn't happen when you freeze. This happens when you cook. So storing meat as a frozen, it's okay. So, again, it's important to know the original design, which is our quantum design of our frequencies and sacred geometry. So you can translate this into your reality. And when you see changes of reality, you understand, well, frequency shifted. And if frequency shifts, well, how is that going to affect the body? And I said very often that the body can be very, very toxic. And we can look and feel extremely healthy. Why? Because the vibration of our cells has remained intact. How can it be intact when you have all these other off-tune vibration very close that are always touching and trying to shift it? Well, because you have very resilient cells. We call it high immunity. Now I'm showing you from a quantum point of view that everything we know about immunity is bollocks, is a nonsense. There is nothing about immunoglobulins and proteins that body makes to protect itself, and white blood cells are your immune system. Nonsense. None of it. White blood cells are simply garbage disposal system. And your health depends on ability of the body to hold on to its original vibration. Now, why are some cells vibrating in such a way that any little push from out of tune frequencies can shift their vibration? And when they shift the vibration, then your robot is reproducing this into your reality, showing you, oh, little pain in the kidney, a little change in a blood structure, little swelling here and there. This is all tissue vibrating differently. So, why some cells could have strong vibration resisting? And no matter what you put in the body, you still vibrate correctly. You feel and you manifest yourself correctly. Because the vibration is not changed, and it didn't change because of high voltage. Higher voltage you have, the more firm is going to be the vibration. And since voltage is easily sucked by a brain, because brain is the highest consumer, every time brain gets overly active, you are sucking the energy. But most activity is caused by fear. Because when you are in fear, your brain calculates like on steroids, looking for solutions. And this is going to take electricity out of your cells. Now, cells are like batteries. They are supposed to hold the voltage. But to do that, they have to be slightly acidic. pH 6.6, 6.8. But what happens when cells, through metabolism, produce acids, and they cannot rinse them because they don't have enough plasma to rinse them, or the cells are closed membranes, so they cannot push it out? The cell becomes acidic, overly acidic. The pH keeps dropping to 6.4, 6.3. The higher acidity, the less the cell is capable on holding the electric charge. Like a car battery. Too much acid, you take it out, leaks out of the charger, the charge disappears. And the only way to keep cells charged is if you keep them plugged in a charger. Our charger is a heart. So as long as the energy comes and is processed to the brain in particular frequency to be sent to manipulate the organ, because the bulk of energy comes through blood. But the sensoring part that activates and deactivates certain actions go through control of the brain. Again, in proper frequency, in frequency adequate to particular organ. And if you have thoughts that resonate similar to these organs, you not only that you suck the energy out, you broadcast it. Thought are broadcasted electromagnetic waves. And this is what takes all the energy out. So, when your cell gets unplugged because you are broadcasting, and it's acidic, so it cannot hold charge, the charge starts dropping, and if it's overly acidic, the charge drops below its minimal value, half of its normal, which is 0.7 volts. And it is designed, in this case, to proliferate and divide itself in half, bags all the garbage it can into one half, isolates it with a membrane, and tries to regain voltage with a healthy part, with less toxins. Now, the bad part should be labeled with a G stuff that I have mentioned. Okay, so the bad part should be labeled with this stuff here. And as soon as it's labeled, your garbage service, the macrophage, sees the label and, that's garbage, choose it and disposes of it. But because we don't produce this protein, the labels, we don't produce the labels because we are eating incorrectly. So body has to produce nagalase, which is done by the same pairs of genes. So the cell will do one or the other. It cannot do both at the same time. So now you don't produce this label. Macrophage is looking, see cell, don't see any problem, goes away. And if the cell cannot raise the voltage, because again it's still being disconnected, brain is still fluttering, well, it goes into proliferation again and again and again. And there comes cancer or growth, tumor or cyst. Okay? This is how they are created. Then we say, no, it's parasites because we see parasites everywhere. Or no, it's fungus because when we alkalize the area, the fungus goes away, we kill the fungus, and we cure this. Well, there are many ways you can act upon cancer. But what cancer is, I just showed you what cancer is. And how it develops. And how it cannot really develop if you are properly in ketogenic state. And since we are not in ketogenic, we are in glucoholic state, we have all this bunch of diseases. So, when we eat plants, we have two different problems. One problem is coming from the toxins that plants have produced to protect themselves, so they're not being eaten, they cannot hide. And these toxins, a variety of them. The most common are polyphenols, the ones that give you the smell. Okay, we say, no, they are antioxidants. Just shove soils where sun doesn't shine. Everything we are being told is wrong. Okay, polyphenols are toxic. I say, you don't believe me? Take flower that smells beautifully, put a bunch of flowers in your room, you say, oh, it smells so nice, and now try to sleep there. You will wake up with such a headache you won't believe it. Okay, it's toxic. But this is not the only one. There are ricin. It's very strong poison. Also found in plants, in seeds. Ricin oil is commonly used as a medicinal remedy. Why? Because from the toxicity, it triggers body into detox. But also poisons it at the same time. Lectins, highly toxic. The sulfone dioxide in garlic, highly neurotoxic. But we say, no, garlic, this is natural, this is a superfood. Just look at the schmucks on internet about their superfoods. Can't be more wrong than they are. And then, we don't know better. We just read and go, okay, that's all. And we start repeating the same crap. This is why almost everything you hear on internet is parent reproduction of garbage science. It has nothing to do with truth. So, plants are bad for us in two ways. One way is recalibration of our body, putting it into glucoholic state. And another one is direct effect of their poisons, with which they are trying to deter us from eating them. And no wonder why people that eat a lot of vegetables have a lot of problems. A lot of health problems. And most of them are digestive because they are poisoning the gut, number one. And then they blame it on the bacteria. The bacteria is grown there because its body is trying to get something out of what you are eating because it cannot digest it. Then they say a probiotic you put. Again, we cannot go too much into these details, but I just want to show you how we are poisoning our body. And then body is trying to eliminate these toxins. It realizes what is toxic. And to eliminate it, has to put it into the blood. So from the blood, it gets flushed out of the body. And we have 3 different organs to do this. But I'm going to address this part in the next video when I'm going to talk about hydration and detox. But what is important to understand from this one, that we are poisoning ourselves because we are eating so-called healthy, versatile diet. Versatile diet is a garbage. We are meant to eat meat, animal products, but we can very well live on a milk and dairy and on eggs. They are all animal products. They all have animal proteins, they all have animal fats, which our body is equipped to deal and to reprocess and nourish itself. It is not designed to be processing vegetables. Herbivores can do it because they have fermentation sac, they need huge amount of greens, and they are not going to be tolerating grain because it will produce too much gas, they will explode. The greens and the flora that turns them, the cellulose, since it is sugar, it turns it into fat. And then after this fermentation, it goes back to the original stomach of the cow where it's processed normally as a fat, animal fats and proteins. But you can feed cow meat, you can feed horse meat, no problem. You can feed human vegetables, but it's not going to last long, and it's not going to be in optimal health because they simply are not designed for this kind of food. So I believe, it started raining, too much noise. I believe that you have the picture of the toxicity. And then, of course, part of the toxin, since it is just offshoot frequency, is what we create with our reaction towards our environment, which we call our emotions. Emotions can be very toxic and can linger in your electromagnetic space and cause as electromagnetic resistance to resist the flow of energy. Okay, my friends, so this is as much as I think it's necessary to understand about diet. And next video, then we are going to go into hydration and water itself. Because even talking about water, there's plenty to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I hope the videos are not too long and I didn't drift too far because, again, I'm working from a quantum field, so it's a huge amount of information that I'm trying to squeeze into the easiest understandable form. It's not very simple for me to do it, and I hate to prepare my speeches. I like to work genuine, so I often get a little bit sidetracked. Okay, so thank you for being here. Love you very much. God bless us all, and see you in next video. Namaste.